Very high probability for a gap fill today on Wednesday. 78% over the last 180 days, 83% over the last 90 days. We've dropped a little bit over the last 30 days here, but if you take that average over the last 90 and 180 days, Mondays and Tuesdays have been a very high probability of filling a gap, especially we're talking about the half gap fill. Look at the half gap fill statistics over the last 180 days for Wednesdays. 95% of the half gap fills have filled over the last 180 days. I can't think of anything that happens 95% of the time in the stock market, in the markets. Anything else, 100% of our half gap fills, it's very rare, of course, even in the smaller time frames, but 180 days is absolutely amazing. So what does that mean? It means that if we were, as we were going into our morning, we were looking at these ranges here that we are inside of for the week, Monday's highs and lows, which by the way, were the product of the VIX running into its Monday's highs and lows here. And you can see here that we're stuck between two opposing setups. You can actually see this a little bit better on an hourly chart here. The VIX has just been range bound. The indices have just been range bound. We've just been going straight sideways. And so what we were watching for as we were going into our morning was if the VIX were to close green off of the bottom of this range here, and the indices were to run into this resistance level and make it below the 20 handle by the time that we got into the open, then we'd have that very high probability for a gap filling. And that comes from not only time, which is the day of the week, but also price. So what is interesting about a morning like this is that we're outside of the 20 and 30 handles. So you'll notice here that there's a 52% probability outside of the 20 handle. And so we were watching for those VIX support levels to trade and for the indices to sell off and make it below the 20. And if we were below the 20, then we have 72, 78, 83. What happens if we, at 9:30, open up outside of the 20 handle? There's still a very high probability for a half gap fill, 95%, 89% over the last 90 days, 83% probability over the last 30 days. But the half gap fill, and I'm just going to simulate it here, where it would be. The half gap fill is right around, if we opened up right here, right now, which we still have 12 minutes, it would be right around the 1650. What happens if we open up above the 20 handle, which it looks like we could, is that we fill the half. And in these days that the probability is only 50% in price, it's a coin flip. And so you see very strong reactions at the half gap fills outside of the 20 handle in our current, the way that gap fills have been filling over the last 180 days, if you want to think about it like that. You lose an edge towards the rest of the way into the fill if we open up outside of that 20 handle. It doesn't mean that it won't fill. It just means it's a 50-50 event in price, right? The high probability event is the half gap fill, which we're simulating here, be right around 1575, 16 as we're going into our morning. If we were able to make that rest of the way into the gap fill, as in if the coin flip, once we get past the half, flips to the rest of the way into the fill, what we were anticipating is that the VIX would squeeze back up into the top. This stream continues at eMiniAddict.com. The link is in the description. Join me there for tools and resources for learning measured move trading. I wrote the book on the measured move. Check out the hundreds of others that have learned trading plan development, pattern recognition, money management, and trading discipline with me to become the best, most confident trader that you can be.